The wind off the northern coast carried with it more than just the salt of the sea, it carried warnings. I had been told never to wander the cliffs alone after sundown, that the ocean itself could turn against you, but curiosity has always been my downfall. That evening, the tide was unusually low, and the beach stretched farther than I had ever seen. Black rocks jutted out like broken teeth, and the air smelled not just of brine but of something sour, rotten, as if the seaweed itself was decaying into poison. I walked further, crunching over shells and driftwood, until I noticed the silence. The gulls that always circled above were gone. Even the waves seemed to crash softer, as though the entire coast held its breath. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was just a horse emerging from the surf, its dark silhouette rippling against the fading light. But as it stepped onto the shore, the details sharpened and my stomach turned. Its skin wasn't skin at all, but raw, glistening muscle, stretched tight over veins that pulsed visibly beneath. Where a rider should have sat, another torso rose, fused grotesquely into the beast, its arms too long, its head twisting unnaturally as if it had been broken and set wrong a dozen times. The Nuckelavee. My grandmother's stories had painted it as a nightmare born from the sea, a demon with no love for mankind, bringing plagues and droughts wherever it roamed. I had laughed them off as folklore, but now, standing on that cursed beach, there was no laughter left in me. Its eyes burned like coals soaked in seawater, locking onto mine with an intelligence that was both ancient and merciless. It knew I had seen it, and in that moment I realized the stories never said what to do if the Nuckelavee noticed you. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to flee back toward the cliffs, to put distance between myself and the abomination that had clawed its way out of the sea. But my legs felt heavy, anchored to the sand as though the beach itself wanted me to stay. The Nuckelavee stepped forward, each hoof struck the ground with a wet sound, like flesh slapping against stone, leaving behind steaming impressions in the sand. The stench grew unbearable. Not just rot, but something sharper, chemical, as if its very breath carried disease. Its rider's torso leaned forward, impossibly long arms dragging along the ground, fingers scraping wet furrows behind it. The sound was like knives against bone. My grandmother's words echoed in my head. Never breathe when it is near. Its breath is poison. Its gaze is a curse. I clamped a hand over my mouth, desperate not to inhale, though my lungs screamed for air. The world tilted, stars beginning to prick the darkening sky above, while the horizon shimmered as if distorted by heat, but it wasn't heat, it was it. The creature paused, tilting its grotesque head toward me. Its eyes glowed brighter, and I swear I felt something, a pressure inside my skull, like invisible fingers prying into my thoughts. Every dark memory, every shame I carried, bubbled to the surface as though it was feeding on them. A low sound rumbled from its chest, not quite a growl, not quite a laugh, something in between. Then it moved faster than I thought possible. One moment it was standing yards away, the next it was nearly upon me, its massive body blotting out the sea behind it. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over driftwood, my heart hammering so loudly I thought it might burst. My only thought was escape, to reach the cliffs, to climb, to put anything between me and this nightmare. But as I turned, the tide began to rise unnaturally fast, waves crashing closer, cutting off the path I had taken. The ocean wasn't retreating anymore. It was helping it trap me. And in that moment, I realized the Nuckelavee wasn't just hunting me. The entire coast was its accomplice. The water surged higher, slamming against the rocks as if the ocean itself obeyed the monster's will. My only escape route was gone. Behind me stretched the black waves, before me stood the Nuckelavee, its towering frame glowing faintly in the moonlight, skinless muscle twitching with every step. I tried to force myself up the cliffs, my fingers clawing at wet stone, but every foothold slipped, slick with seawater. From below came the sound of hooves striking faster, closer, echoing in the air like war drums. The creature was not chasing me. It was hurting me. A blast of foul air hit my back, burning my skin as though I had brushed against acid. My grandmother's warning returned. Its breath kills crops, poisons cattle, sickens the living. Was it now trying to rot me from the inside out? I pressed my body to the stone, trembling, forcing shallow breaths through the fabric of my sleeve. My lungs ached, every second stretched like an eternity. Then came the voice, not a human voice, not even words, but a vibration that throbbed in my skull. 1,000 whispers layered together, muttering in a language I could not understand, my vision blurred. I felt my will draining, as if it wanted me to simply let go, fall into the tide, and surrender. But surrender meant death, or worse. Summoning what little strength I had left, I tore a shard of rock from the cliff face and hurled it down. It struck the Nuckelavee's rider, if it could even be called a rider, square in the chest. The thing barely reacted, except its glowing eyes flared brighter and the whispers in my head twisted into something sharper like laughter. The tide rose again, now licking at my boots. Soon the ocean would swallow the beach completely. The Nuckelavee stood between me and land, behind me stretched only endless black water. I was trapped in a cage of flesh, salt, and fear. And for the first time, I truly understood why the people of Orkney whispered its name only in hushed tones. I could no longer tell where the ocean ended and the storm began. Waves crashed like thunder, spraying icy salt into my eyes, blinding me with each splash. My body was shaking, not just from the cold, but from the presence of the Nuckelavee itself, a living nightmare stitched together from everything unholy. Its horse-like bulk loomed over the beach, the grotesque rider fused into its back, glaring at me with 2 pits of molten fire. There was no reason, no mercy in that gaze, only hunger. The whispers in my skull grew louder, pounding like war drums from inside my own head. I dropped to my knees, clutching my ears, desperate to block them out, but there was no escape. The monster wasn't just chasing me physically, it was clawing at my very mind, trying to pull me into madness. Somewhere deep in the chaos of fear, a memory surfaced. My grandmother again, her stories, yes, but not just warnings. She once said, "The Nuckelavee cannot cross pure running water. Even its breath of decay cannot pollute a stream that flows free." The words struck like lightning. I forced myself upright, scanning the cliffs. My heart pounded as my eyes caught it, a narrow stream cutting down the rocks, pouring into the sea. It was faint, almost hidden in the shadows, but it was there, the only hope. The monster seemed to sense it too. It reared back, muscles rippling beneath its skinless body, and the rider's twisted arms stretched forward as if to drag me down with invisible chains. I stumbled across the sand, the rising tide pulling at my legs. Each step was a battle, the weight of the whispers trying to root me in place. Behind me, the sound of hooves thundered closer. The stench of its breath wrapped around me like smoke, choking me, forcing bile into my throat. I gagged but pressed forward, every ounce of strength focused on that thin silver stream. The ground shook as the Nuckelavee charged. I didn't look back. I couldn't. One mistake, one glance, and I knew I'd be finished. I reached the stream just as the creature lunged. I threw myself forward, diving across the narrow water. For a heartbeat I was weightless, suspended in the air, hearing nothing but the rush of blood in my ears. Then I landed hard on the opposite bank, rolling into the mud. A roar unlike anything I had ever heard split the night. I turned just in time to see it, the Nuckelavee skidding to a halt at the edge of the stream, its hooves thrashing, the rider's skeletal arms clawing at the air, but it did not cross, it could not. The whispers shattered, breaking into a hiss of rage before dissolving into silence. The beast pawed at the earth, snarling, its fleshless frame trembling with fury. Then, with a final howl, it turned and thundered back into the darkness of the shore, vanishing into the storm from which it came. I collapsed, every muscle in my body burning, my chest heaving for air. For long minutes I lay there in the mud, too afraid to move, too stunned to believe I was still alive. When at last I staggered to my feet, dawn had begun to creep across the horizon, painting the sea with streaks of gray and gold. The cliffs stood silent again, the storm had passed. And yet, I knew the truth, it wasn't gone. The Nuckelavee was still out there, bound to the tides and storms of these islands, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to wander to close. That night left me scarred, yes, but also certain. Legends are not merely tales to frighten children. They are warnings etched into memory by those who came before, hoping someone would listen. And so I pass this story to you. If you ever walk the shores of Orkney on a stormy night, remember the name. The Nuckelavee. Whisper it if you must, but never call it aloud. And for your own sake, never forget where the streams run. Because once you hear its hooves, you may not have another chance to run. If this story made your pulse race and your imagination wander into the shadows, then join me in keeping these legends alive. Like this video, share it with someone who dares to face the unknown, and subscribe to Twinkling for more chilling encounters with the world's most mysterious creatures. And tell me in the comments, if you were standing where I stood, would you run, or would you face the Nuckelavee?